Hey, it's good to hear that music again, as we always hear Wednesday afternoons when it's time to usher in Helping Seniors of Brevard. I'm John Harper. Kerry Fink, the Executive Director of Helping Seniors of Brevard, is your host. And right now, let's introduce Kerry. And Kerry, your special guest for today, one of our favorites, is Dr. Lee Sheldon. Kerry, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, John Harper. And you better know it. Dr. Sheldon has been a friend of the Helping Seniors organization. It goes all the way back with Joe Steckler, our president and founder, literally to the days when Joe was building the Joe's Clubs and doing all the work getting Brevard Alzheimer's rolling. And now here we are, 12 plus, almost 13 years into Helping Seniors. And Dr. Sheldon, you are still here. How are you, sir?
I am still here, Kerry, and good. And how are you today?
I am good, although I have to admit I have been studying very, very carefully since you sent me the topic for today's show, which we're going to let listeners in on just a minute. I wanted to first of all welcome you to the Helping Seniors radio show. It's always fun to gather around the radio, 12 noon to 1 p.m. lunchtime hour together here on 90.3 FM WEJF every Wednesday. Hello to those of you listening online at wejf.net and to those who pick this up as a podcast later, because it's always good information. And with that kind of as a backdrop, I'm going to encourage you to grab a pencil and a paper, because as we go into today's session, there's a lot of great things that are coming up literally in the next couple of weeks. And I want to make sure you get a chance to jot down some of the dates and some of the things that are coming up in the Helping Seniors world. It's really getting interesting now, Dr. Sheldon, because if you've been, as you know, but if you've been following our story, we are so privileged that we were granted a really nice section of space in the Omni Healthcare Professional Tower right over there on the medical campus in Melbourne, just a couple of blocks from the hospital there. And so there we are. We're in Suite 2C. Everybody's getting moved in. We're getting everything, pictures hung on the wall. They're actually going to be doing some repainting and things like that. But this is really exciting because for now, the first time in the month of July, we're actually going to be hosting some really good information sessions and things there. So as we go through this is going to be some dates and things you're going to want to jot down on with a pen and a pencil. So if they're important for you, you'll be able to participate, because all these are free and we're just doing our best. As you know, Joe has called it an aging plan for years. We kind of euphemistically say we want to help you get your ducks in a row so that you can do everything and really make the best out of your senior years. Is that a good way to say that, Dr. Sheldon?
I think that's good. And I think what would be even better is that we schedule a lecture from a well-known periodontist so that he can impart his dental wisdom at one of those sessions. What do you think, Kerry?
I think that's a Book 'em Dano kind of moment right there.
Good.
so that's perfect.
I put you on the spot. Notice, I mean, my son got to be there, which I think was great. Actually, my son may be a better choice than I am.
Well, no, I think it's all good, and I that's what I'm so excited, because this has been a goal of Joe's since the day he began helping seniors all those years ago. He said, Kerry, I really would like to have a place that we can do all the things we try to do for helping seniors, both locationally, meaning that there's a place that people can actually come to. It's very centrally located for us in Melbourne area, but then also even for those that it may not be easy to get to. The thing that what we really like about it is the fact that because we are so outreach in terms of media, we do the radio, we do the television on Space Coast Government TV 4 times a day now, Monday through Friday. We publish in the center section of Senior Scene magazine, and we're all about getting good quality information in the hands of seniors. So even as we're doing these sessions now, we're going to be able to make those available throughout our kind of like our little media network of Facebook, and we put everything out on our YouTube channel, Helping Seniors of Brevard, and of course it's on our website, helpingseniorsofbrevard.org. So it's all exciting stuff, and this is it's like a whole new chapter for us, Dr. Sheldon. So we're just beyond excited and really feeling it's going to help us do an even better job of serving the seniors. And there's a lot of them, as you know, here in Brevard County. In fact, the stats are one in four is over the age of 65. And if you go by AARP rules, which is they will send you a membership card age 50, like it or not, then 1 out of 2 of us fits the category. So it's important stuff, because as I like to say, Dr. Sheldon, you
when does AARP start? When they start? Would you say 50?
Yeah.
I think I started remember getting when it was before 50. My goodness,
well,
So
all I can tell you is there's usually such a cry of outrage on somebody's 50th birthday, because they get this card in the mail and they're like, oh my goodness, they're calling me a senior. My view, Dr. Sheldon, is, give me the discount. It accrues to me. I'm happy. Just let me have the discount. That's good.
I'll tell you, Kerry, the first time they offered me a discount, I remember when it happened, and it wasn't AARP. They just looked at me and said, are you over, at the point it was, you were over 55, and I got to take $3 off the movie ticket, and I said, I don't want it. I don't want to claim it yet.
It's all good. It's all good. Well, but we say in this county, you either are a senior by the demographics of Brevard County. You either are a senior, love and care for a senior, God willing, live another year or two, and you'll be a senior too. So hopefully everything we're doing is of value to seniors and the families that love and care for them. But this is what I love about working together with you, Dr. Sheldon, because I send an email and say, well, what are we going to talk about today? And today I get this unique email back. It says, oh, we're going to have, and these are my words, so we're going to have a pop quiz on the air. I don't think I've had one of those since my school days, actually.
There is remember, I was an associate clinical professor at the University of Florida, so we've got to get a little bit of that feeling back. Enough of the clinical stuff. Let's relive my teaching years.
Yeah. So actually, today's show is called True or False, and we're gonna go through 5 questions here. And I would say this is probably not Stump the Doctor, because I know you know the answers, but this could be Stump me, because I'm not sure that necessarily I do. And I love this first question: true or false? And this is great for me, because now I get to feel like a game show host, right? So, question number 1: you need to get your teeth cleaned every 6 months. True or false?
All right, I want everybody to participate. I told you guys I want to. Let's see if Jim and John want to get on the air and they want to participate in this. Come on, guys.
Well, this is Jim, and I'm going to tell you. I believe that you really should do that. And as far as I'm concerned, I do get my one tooth, done every 6 months or 6 years, whichever comes first.
So that's why they call it a toothbrush, don't you?
That's right. It's only for one.
I've never thought about it. That's why we don't call it a teeth brush, huh? Well, so again, I'm going to repeat the question. You need to get your teeth cleaned every 6 months. True or false?
Or your tooth cleaned every 6 months,
as the case would be. Are
you ready for the answer, gentlemen?
Yes.
Survey says
false.
Wow.
Where did cleaning every 6 months come from? What's that all about? Did you ever wonder? Did you ever think, where did this 6 months come from? Why? Why would somebody say, get your teeth cleaned every 6 months? So I'll tell you this. If you have periodontal disease, and in our best patients, we are seeing them, after we solve the periodontal disease problem for them, we're seeing them every 3 months until they've proven to us that they've got it under control. And then we go to 4 months, and then we'll go to 5 months, and then we'll go to 6 months, and then we'll go to 7 months, or even longer, depending upon what they need. In other words, we tailor it to the individual. The main reason you get your teeth cleaned as an adult is to keep the periodontal disease away, which is the disease that causes bone loss and causes teeth to get loose and come out. And so the purpose of cleaning there is to get rid of the bacteria or the plaque around the teeth. And, that initially it is every 3 months. And most of the data, we don't have a lot of data on this, is every 3 months, but you tailor it to the individual. Now, where did 6 months come from?
Mm-hmm.
6 months came from a radio commercial in the 1930s. Okay, now it came from a toothpaste company that, so notice, Jim, just to support you, it's not called toothpaste either, it's called toothpaste. So it came from a toothpaste company. For those of you who are of my ilk, my age, you remember a brand name called Ipana toothpaste. That's right. You remember?
Yeah. Bucky Beaver, yeah.
Yeah, Brusha. That was the Brusha was the Ipana toothpaste. That was the Ipana toothpaste Beaver, I think it was. But it was brush your teeth twice a day and see your dentist twice a year. Mm-hmm. That was what they said in the commercial. Why do you think they said that?
More toothpaste.
Well, because they wanted the dentists to support Ipana toothpaste. So if Ipana is saying, go see your dentist twice a year, then a dentist would then say, well, good, brush your teeth twice a day, and we both make out.
Huh? You know, Dr. Sheldon, that reminds me of a radio show we did not so long ago. I think Nancy Deerdorf was part of it. And you were talking about some nutritional facts and how things move around over the year. Like, I think we were talking in particular about how I remember as a kid growing up, you know, it was like drink your milk so you grow up healthy with strong bones and all of that. And I remember in the conversation, you guys were having the discussion that it's not always the thing that is 100% recommended. And it's like, I think another one that comes into my life a lot is they talk about coffee, and one day it's good for you, and the next day another study says it's not so good for you. And so we just quit paying attention to the studies, I guess.
Well, it's true, because the studies, we can talk about coffee someday, maybe we will. And I'll tell you how I make mine, and I'll tell you, it's a science. But anyway, we can, if we're talking about drinking 3 glasses of milk a day, and it turns out that the calcium requirements happen to add up to three glasses of milk a day. But understand, all of our nutritional education in our schools came from the National Dairy Council.
Yeah, well,
do you see something wrong with that?
Well, yeah, so it sort of goes back to your toothpaste and go see your dentist, whether you know, well, that's all part of it. So that was
there's so much PR going on, and this idea about science, and we actually think we know what we're talking about with regard to science. You know, there's so many scientific studies that are done. Many of them are done wrong. Some of them are retracted after they're released when it finds out that the data is either false or misinterpreted. Science isn't settled, but certainly if the science is being purported by a particular industry who stands to gain, or the study is done by the particular industry that's going to gain from using that particular product that's being studied, boy, you got to look at that really, really carefully. So be careful of this data. This whole idea about calcium and 3 glasses of milk a day. There are many countries that do fine without 3 glasses of milk a day, and the idea about osteoporosis being prevented in those countries where you're drinking 3 glasses of milk a day. I think if you study that, you might find exactly the opposite. So be careful about what you hear and the sources they're coming from. Even me.
Well, yeah, it's good news for those who may be lactose intolerant, right?
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
So that was question number 1. Surprising answer. You need to get your teeth cleaned every 6 months. True or false? And the answer to that was false. So let's move ahead.
Let me go back to that, Kerry. I can expand upon this if you want. Is it okay?
Go for it.
There are sometimes I see patients and they said, I need a cleaning. And I said, when was the last time you had your teeth cleaned? And it was over a year ago. And I look at them, I examine them, I see no evidence of decay. They're taking perfect care of their teeth. They don't need a cleaning. I mean, they may want it for cosmetic purposes, but I've seen plenty of patients where they said they want a cleaning. Okay, if you want it, it's okay, but you don't need it. Understand that when we're doing cleaning, as I said earlier, it's for control of disease, but if you have no disease, then it's all right. Do you want us to polish the teeth and take the stain off the teeth? Understand that that's a minority of our patients because, we see patients who are in pretty bad shape.
Right. Well, that kind of is almost a lead into our second question on today's quiz show, True or False, Ask the Dentist and Periodontist. And question number 2 is, and I like this one. This is a good one because I would guess yes, of course. And let's see if that's right. You should brush your teeth 3 times a day after every meal. Now, is that true or false? To me, that sounds like sound advice that, you were always taught even from a child growing up, right?
Yeah.
That's right. Jim?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say brush your teeth after every meal, even if you have a snack.
You're such a good boy.
Well, I didn't say I did it. I just said that's what you're supposed to do.
And Kerry, you already have the answer, so you don't know. So you already know.
Survey says.
Poor Jim. The answer is no. And let me tell you why. First of all, Jim, I totally support you brushing your teeth 3 times a day or more. That's fine. As a matter of fact, I don't know if I ever told you this on the air, Kerry. When I went to school, I went to Tufts Dental School, which is in Boston. And we had a retired colonel there, retired colonel dentist who taught in the oral diagnosis department. His name was Dr. Thompson. And Dr. Thompson would walk around the dental clinic with a toothbrush in his mouth all day, all day.
Wow.
And Dr. Thompson really felt, if you sat down and you asked him, he felt that even if you had tooth decay, you could brush away the decay and not even need a filling. So this was Dr. Thompson. We used to know him. I mean, he was known in the clinic as Toothbrush Thompson. So after I got out of school, I was a young guy, and I was too young to. If you saw what I looked like when I graduated from dental school, you'd say, "Whoa, he's far too young to be my dentist." So I decided to go in the Army and actually did a residency in the Army. Residency means you train under specialists for a year, and then you give 2 years afterwards. So I did my residency at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, which is a great place to be, particularly if you're in Massachusetts. To get out of Massachusetts and find out that Oklahoma existed and that you could live there is really the reason that I moved to Florida. Eleanor and I moved to Florida because we lived in Oklahoma, and we said, "Oh, this is pretty good. If we live here, we can live anywhere." We decided to go to Florida after I finished my residency. So anyway, I'm in the residency. In the residency, we're treating patients under specialists, and we also have lecturers. And these lecturers were colonels who would come in from Fort Sam Houston, which wasn't that far away, 4 hours away, something like that, or from University of Oklahoma, which wasn't that far away. We would have some top flight people coming in to talk to the residents. So this was a colonel, and this colonel happened to be from Fort Sam Houston. And he came in, and there was in this residency in the Army, there were only 8 of us. And one of the people in our residency was John, and John, him and I went to Tufts together. So there were 2 of us from Tufts. And so the lecturer was talking about whatever he was talking about. And the lecturer was a dentist. And of course, the lecturer was a colonel, and Dr. Thompson was a retired colonel as well. Toothbrush Thompson was a retired colonel. So he talked about whatever he was talking about, and then we started to play Do You Know Geography? Do you know him? Do you know that? And so John said to the lecturer, "Do you know Dr. Thompson?" And the lecturer immediately retorted, "You mean Toothbrush Thompson?" So Toothbrush Thompson was popular all over the place. Everybody knew Toothbrush Thompson. I digress. So
what?
So the question then is, you have to brush your teeth 3 times a day. And the answer is, it depends on what you're brushing for. Food particles themselves don't do anything. They don't cause disease. The food particles feed the plaque, which is bacteria that's on the tooth, and it's the plaque that causes the disease. So the idea of brushing 3 times a day is to remove food particles, but if you don't remove the plaque, which is going to be there whether you have food or not, if you don't remove the plaque, you're still going to have disease. Well, how often do you need to remove the plaque? Once a day is enough. Once every 24 hours. Doesn't make any difference whether you do it in conjunction with meals or not. As a matter of fact, if you really believe the plaque theory, then it would mean you should brush your teeth before you eat rather than after you eat.
Wow.
Why is that? Because if you brush the teeth before you eat, you're removing the plaque, and then the food particles have nothing to feed.
Wow.
Now, how many people have ever said that? For years, there was only one person who I ever heard say that, and you're listening to him right now. And then last year, I saw somebody write in the dental journal, doesn't it make more sense that you brush your teeth before you eat rather than after you eat? And finally, there's a second person who agrees with me.
You know, it's kind of fascinating because I feel like with those first 2 questions, we're already busting a lot of myths, or I guess a lot of like commonly held perceptions that are out there. I mean, these are, you know, it's like these old sayings that nobody knows where they first started, and we find it goes back to a commercial. I don't know if you ever saw the movie Christmas Story, and the little kid, he keeps writing every day so he can get his little secret decoder ring, and he finally gets it, and he's trying to decode his first secret message, and then he gets to the end of it and he figures out, be sure to drink your Ovaltine. And it says, oh, what a crummy commercial, huh? And that's how it goes. Well, listen, we're going to go into our mid-show break here in just a moment. We're having a good time with our pop quiz. And this is with Dr. Lee Sheldon, noted area periodontist, who has created these questions. Remember, you know, I think we're all old enough to remember being in grade school, and you'd walk into class and the teacher would say, time for the pop quiz, and everybody would go, oh no, and here comes all the little mimeographed sheets out. But this is actually fun, and it's actually, I think, very helpful because it's helping us to think about some things that are going to help us have better mouth health as we go. And also, I want to remind you before we get to the mid-show break to grab your pencil and paper, because right as we come back, I'm going to share a couple of dates and things that you're probably going to want to jot down, because there's a lot of stuff going on, both with the Senior Resource Center. We're actually working to help renters in the city of Palm Bay. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And we have questions 3 through 5. Well, actually, we should go questions 2 through 4, and then the 5th would be the bonus round question on today's pop quiz, true or false, as it has to do with dental care. Real quick, before we get to mid-show break, Dr. Sheldon, you guys have so many things. You have the Helping Seniors car raffle tickets. You have the Ultimate Mouth Manual. If somebody wants to reach the office real quick, what's the best way to get in touch with your office?
Yeah, give us a call, 321-259-8000, and tell them you heard us on Helping Seniors of Brevard. And for $50 donated to Helping Seniors of Brevard, you're going to get a full examination, CT scan, everything, a 2-hour experience with me.
Yeah, and even better.
Or if you don't want me, there are 2 other doctors who'll be happy to see you.
Yeah, and even better for us is that you end up donating that back into the work of Helping Seniors, for which we are very grateful. So it's just a good deal all the way around. Second half of the show coming up in just a moment. Helping Seniors right here, 90.3 FM, WEJF.
And you're listening to Helping Seniors of Brevard, the program heard every Wednesday, 12 noon to 1 o'clock. I'm John Harper, and let's get the second half of the show underway. Here is the Executive Director of Helping Seniors of Brevard and the host of the program, Kerry Fink. Kerry?
Hey, thank you, John Harper. It's so good to be back on the radio. Every Wednesday we gather at lunchtime, noon to 1, right here on 90.3 FM, WEJF, Wednesdays on the radio and online, by the way, at WEJF.net. And hello to those of you that are continuing enjoying this as a podcast. It's available every place that you would normally get a podcast. So that could be from Apple iTunes to Hey Alexa on Amazon. And we're having a fun time because I'm getting to follow some of my all-time great folks that I really admired in the day coming up, who are game show hosts, because we're having a true or false quiz with none other than Dr. Lee Sheldon, noted area periodontist and longtime friend of the Helping Seniors organization, goes way back with Joe Steckler. And now, you really are sought after nationwide. I know a lot of dentists and medical practices look to you for guidance about how to do things well. And you and a lot of periodontists, you're always active, publishing and promoting new concepts and things that are really kind of groundbreaking. So it's interesting that we get to have this opportunity to have this pop quiz on the radio today, Doctor.
It's true, and we've got another article coming out it's going to be in a publication, the second most popular publication in the United States, and we've got an article coming out in the July-August issue. So I don't know whether it's going to be in July or August, but it's coming up soon that it'll be published, and this is going to be our hardest hitting article yet. So I may be totally censored from now on. You never can tell.
You'd be the controversial doctor. Well, interestingly
Not
enough,
me.
No, you'd be the correct doctor.
Yeah, I mean, I'm never controversial. Are you kidding me, Kerry?
No, not you.
I just go with the flow. You know that.
Sure. Well, you know what we learned in the first half of the show when we were doing this pop quiz? We probably should have called this Mythbusters, because so far in the two questions we covered, we discovered that those were actually, I guess, it was like, how they do in political, they call them fact checks, and they go, well, it's partially true or whatever. So we talked about this. You need to get your teeth cleaned every 6 months. And we learned that was actually something that was promoted through a toothpaste commercial. And then we also learned that this maxim that I bet all of us could recite if somebody shook us awake at 3:00 in the morning and said, you should brush your teeth 3 times a day after every meal, we would all raise up and salute and say, yes, that's what we were taught. And then the answer that we just discussed in the first half of the show was that's not actually always the case. And you made a great case for maybe even brushing before a meal, which was kind of interesting. So we're going to continue that. I did promise that we were going to share a couple of dates. And so I want to ask you to grab that pencil and paper. And let me share a couple of things that you might want to jot down that are coming up. First of all, we are in the midst of car raffle season on the Helping Seniors Radio Network. It all winds up October 7th at the American Muscle Car Museum. Mark Pylock's astounding collection right there on Sarno Road, just down the street, Dr. Sheldon, from your own amazing medical practice office there.
Yes, sir. Mark has done a tremendous job. And for those of you who have visited before, don't think you've already seen it. Mark changes so many things each year that it's like going to a new museum each time we have an event there.
Yeah, it's so much fun. He opens up the place. He's been so kind to us every year. He's allowed us to do that. He's been open. He's allowed us to do our grand drawing there. And this is actually going to be our 7th annual Helping Seniors car raffle. So it's Saturday, October 7th. Make sure you have that date on your calendar. But even in the meanwhile, I wanted to share with you that this Saturday we're going to be out. We're talking about July the 15th. We're going to be out at the Dunkin' Donuts car show right there on Indy Atlantic. So it's the Dunkin' Donuts there beachside in Indy Atlantic. It's one of Bill Antonis' great car shows. He's so kind. He gives us a prime spot, and people are really lining up to get tickets now that we're really getting actually kind of close to it. So I wanted to share that. Now, another date that you want to keep in mind for Saturday in the morning also is if you live in Palm Bay and you are a renter, there is a special HUD housing workshop that we have been offered help with from the city of Palm Bay, because they are through their CDBG funds wanting to make sure that renters understand their rights. And I got to tell you, Dr. Sheldon, the number one set of calls that Nancy Deerdorf, our operations director, handles as they come in on that senior information helpline, about 60% of the calls these days are about housing. And it's a lot of times it's people saying, well, I'm being told that I have this or this, and I've rented here for all these years. What are my rights? This is exactly what this housing workshop is set out to do. We have Vinnie Richardson with Christian Housing Ministry, who's a HUD certified counselor. She's going to be there. They're going to have some attorneys on site and a lot of information. But you have to, you have to RSVP, because it's literally limited to a couple couple of places so that everybody can have really good attention and good information. But that is coming up this Saturday as well, Saturday, July 15th, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. So you got to call Nancy, 321-473-7770 to see if there's still space for you to join us on Saturday for that. Another thing that I want to share with you, and Dr. Sheldon, we were talking about this in the first half of the show, and absolutely we will do some periodontal and good information events. I remember pre-pandemic, you did a lot teaching us about dental implants, and I thought it was fascinating because I remember Tammy and I attended one of those, and I have to be honest, Dr. Sheldon, I really thought it was going to be a sales pitch for dental implants, and I was so pleasantly surprised to see how really educational and informational, and it was not a pitch for dental implants. It was like, here's how they are, everything you need to know about it. Now you can take all that information with you and decide what makes the best sense for you. I would love to see us do that kind of thing now that we have the luxury of having the Senior Resource Center Brevard in that beautiful Omni Healthcare professional tower right there on the medical campus there in downtown Melbourne, just a block or two from the hospital. So actually on Thursday, July 20th, we're doing one of our first efforts there. Jital Patel, who is Coastal Occupational Therapy, she is doing a program called Drive Safe Brevard. And this is about empowering independence and making sure that as we age, we can do safe driving. And she's actually kind of certified in this. And so she's doing a class. Again, these are small classes, workshops, 10 to 12, 15 people max. But it's going to happen Thursday, 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. there at our offices, 2C, Suite 2C, in the Apollo Professional Tower, which we also call the Omni Professional Tower. You can get information on all of these events that I'm talking about by giving Nancy a call at 321-473-7770. And she'll have the info, can fill in all the details for you, and get you signed up if you want to RSVP. Everything we're talking about is we're a charity, so we don't charge for any of this. The only time we charge is we ask you to buy Helping Seniors car raffle tickets so you can help us keep the work of Helping Seniors going. But the rest is our service back to the community. Another date that I want to ask you to keep in mind, and the last one we'll talk about right now, is Monday, July 31st, because we're going to be back over at Buena Vita Estates in Melbourne, where we've been doing our senior education series. And the one that's coming up 10:30 to 11:30 that morning is called Your Wellness and Medical Checklist. And that's another, these are well attended. We get like 30, 40 people come out and join us, and which is another reason we need your RSVP, because in that case, we'll actually send you home with a lunch, but we got to know you're going to be there to make sure that Chef Jillian with Chefs for Seniors knows to count you in for lunch that day. So again, all these different programs we're talking about, if I went over them too fast, your pencil tip broke, whatever, just remember one number, 321-473-7770. And you can say, I heard those guys talking about it on the radio, but I wanted more information about. And then Nancy will hunt it down, or Karen, or whoever's picking up the phone will make sure that we get that information to you. So with that, Dr. Lee Sheldon, are we ready to get back to true or false?
I am ready. Let's see if I remember the answers to my own questions.
Okay, well, now then it becomes a quiz challenge for you too. So question number 3 on our true or false challenge today. This one is tricky. If your gums don't bleed, you don't have periodontitis. Is that true or false?
Yeah, so the answer is
True.
false.
Wow. Wow, this really is.
Well, I thought if I have gum disease, I have bleeding gums. And the answer is, if you have gingivitis, which is inflammation of the gum tissue itself, yes, your gums are going to bleed. But once you get periodontitis, it means that the bacteria has burrowed way below the gum line and started to destroy the ligament and the bone support. Your toothbrush doesn't reach that far down. So you won't get bleeding. I will when I do the periodontal probing examination, but your toothbrush doesn't go anywhere near where the site of the inflammation is. So gingivitis is the surface of the gum that's totally reversible by just brushing your teeth and flossing your teeth well. But that usually happens when we're teenagers. By the time we get periodontal disease in adults, and we know at least 42% of adults have periodontal disease, by the time it gets into periodontal disease where it burrows below the gum line, you've lost bone support, you won't see any bleeding gums at all, yet you'll have loss of bone support.
Wow. So all these, because you see here again, we go back to the commercials you see on TV, Dr. Sheldon, because I can't tell you how many times I've seen a commercial for some, toothpaste that's sitting there you got bleeding gums? Well, you need this toothpaste because you've got periodontitis. And so
it's
I guess
true.
we're saying,
and by the way, some of these toothpastes are good.
Yeah.
But some of these toothpastes are good, but these toothpastes themselves, if you have, remember we did that show on calculus or fractured calculus, which is the hard bacteria or the body's attempt to neutralize the bacteria by calcifying it and having this caked on crud that's on the root surfaces. If you have that, I don't care how well you brush, that caked on calculus has bacteria within it, and you're going to continue to lose bone support. And that's what needs to be removed at that point. I'm not saying some of these toothbrushes aren't good. Some of these toothpastes are good. Some of these are antibacterial. And by the way, even antibacterial is being challenged right now. Did you know that, Kerry?
No.
We have antibacterial soaps and antibacterial mouthwashes and antibacterial toothpaste and antibacterial this and that. Well, as soon as you start removing the bacteria, you're changing the entire microbiome. Microbiome is the family of bacteria that occupies your space and occupies your body. You're taking away one set of bacteria. Well, it doesn't necessarily mean the good things are going to happen as a result. You're changing the environment, and sometimes you're changing the environment for the worse rather than the better. That's why we're not prescribing antibiotics now nearly as much as we did before, because the body has to recover from those changes in removal of bacteria. And there are all sorts of things that happen when you take away bacteria, because sometimes you're taking away good bacteria and some bad things happen as a result.
Well, this kind of goes back to a point that you were making in the first half of the show where we were talking about, people say, well, I want to follow the science. And that is really a noble thought. The problem is science does keep shifting. And, the best analogy I've ever heard about that was I remember in grade school, if they asked me how many planets were in the solar system and I didn't write down 9, I would have been marked incorrectly. And then, of course, later they got a better telescope and they decided Pluto, after all, is not a planet. So the correct answer is there would be 8 planets in the solar system. And it just shows how science keeps evolving as people learn more. But
it does.
Huh? Yeah.
Yes, it does. And you do have to be caught up with it. That's why this whole follow the science and all this baloney that we were hearing during the pandemic was really a lot of baloney, because follow the science. Science is only a thought process in order to be able to determine what's true and what's not. And as we develop more pieces of data, we find out that what we thought was the truth may not be the truth at all.
Yeah, and I guess as we learn more, I always am a little gentle with people in the COVID area because it was so new. But I remember following the mask: wear a mask, don't wear a mask. You need to wear 5 masks. And I kind of got lost in it as we went along. But here's a thought that, getting back to our quiz, I thought, this is true, false. So I'm going to say the statement and you get to mark on your own paper, is this true or false? And then we'll find out from the expert, Dr. Lee Sheldon, with Dr. Sheldon and Furtado Solid Bite Dental right there on Sarner Road. So question number 4. So interestingly, we've had 3 falses in a row, right? You need to get your teeth cleaned every 6 months. We said that was false, but there's something behind it. You should brush your teeth 3 times a day after every meal. We call that one false. If your gums don't bleed, you don't have periodontitis. We call that one false. Now, is this true or false? Some kinds of toothpaste will help with sensitive teeth. Is that true or false?
That's right. And you do see a number of toothpastes coming on the market and have been on the market. Some have been on the market for my entire lifetime that say good for sensitive teeth. And the answer is true.
Wow. Okay.
There
So
are
that's one where
toothpastes.
the ads are actually correct, maybe.
That's correct. And different manufacturers have different chemicals that will work to desensitize the teeth. Will it work for everyone? No. But what is essentially they're creating is something that acts as a desensitizer to depolarize or cover up the tubules that go from the surface of the root into the nerve, and they work. Now, it takes a while for them to work. Usually you get your maximum effect in about 6 weeks. But if you brush regularly with these desensitizing toothpaste, then if you have sensitivity to cold or to sweets, not that I'm encouraging sweets, but if you have sensitivity to those, then that sensitivity will gradually go away. And the interesting thing, Kerry, here is that there are some chemicals that work better than others. So that if you're using a desensitizing toothpaste and it's not working, take a look at the ingredients on the label, and then when you go and shop for another toothpaste, take a look and see if there's a different ingredient and try that if the first one doesn't work.
You know, that's interesting advice, and plus, I'm all in favor of it because it allows us to eat ice cream without any negative ramifications.
yeah, of course. Yeah, sure. Yeah, you can take that one to the bank, sure.
Okay, so I guess that would be a false.
And I'll tell you this, Kerry. Sheldon and Furtado will make a lot of money if you follow that advice.
We always laugh whenever we have because if you've been around Joe Steckler, our president and founder, long enough to know he's a big fan of rum raisin ice cream. And so, but ice cream is just one of those happy foods. Maybe it doesn't make your teeth happy, but generally it seems to be there.
Let's just understand what the meaning of moderation is. And moderation doesn't mean I'm going to do it once a day instead of twice a day.
There you go. Fair enough.
Make sure that ice cream is reserved as a treat, just like any sugar-containing compound. Otherwise, as I've often said, and probably and maybe in question number 5, you can undo anything that we do.
Okay. Well, so in our 5-question quiz, and we're up to the 5th and final question. So you have to see how you scored on this. Number 1 was you need to get your teeth cleaned every 6 months. We said false, but there was a little bit of conversation about it. You should brush your teeth 3 times a day after every meal. We said that was false. If your gums don't bleed, you don't have periodontitis. We said that was false. And we asked the question, some kinds of toothpaste help with sensitive teeth. And we said that was true. So the final question today, cavities stop when you become an adult. Is that true or false?
Well, there's some of you who have cavities and you're listening to me right now and you're probably not kids, so you know that it's false. The idea was that remember as we were growing up and we'd listen to the toothpaste commercials, particularly the toothpaste that have fluorides in them, and we'd say the cavity-prone years. Okay, and the cavity-prone years were, the younger people, 6 to, let's say, 15 or 17 or 18, something like that. That used to be your cavity-prone years. But understand that the definition of cavity-prone changed with more and more consumption of sugar. So the answer is false, that in fact, your cavity-prone years never stop unless you change your habits, which is what I was referring to with the ice cream. What we think was okay 30 years ago and what we think is okay now has changed. Just look at what happens when we go to the gas station. There really isn't any such thing as a gas station. It's a snack station. And we take a look at all of the things that are offered to you in addition to the gasoline. That didn't occur when we were growing up, did it?
No.
Yeah, and so you take a look at the big refrigerators that line the walls of each of these places, and they're loaded with sugar-containing drinks. And we get the idea that some of these sugar-containing drinks are even healthy for us. They're, they advertise it. It contains electrolytes, and therefore it is healthy for us. But what they don't say, it contains a lot of sugar, and that's not very healthy for us. And so you get your electrolytes in a different way, not necessarily from something that simulates something that is in the swamp and has big proboscis and opens and closes its mouth and attacks dogs every once in a while. You don't necessarily go with that product because it's a health food. It's not. It just isn't. So that may be question number 6. What was I just referring to?
I think I know.
But you don't do that. And that the exposures to sugar, particularly as we get older, because as we get older, our gums recede, the softer part of the tooth, which is the root, then becomes a bit exposed, and that root can easily become decayed. In addition, as we get older, we take more and more medications, and you and I have had that debate on medications before, and we'll have it again, and Nancy and I will probably fight tooth and nail, but maybe not. No, Nancy, probably not. That we're reliant on too many medications. But the problem with medications, one problem with medications, among others, is that medications tend to dry out the salivary glands, and so we don't have saliva flowing through the mouth. And saliva is supposed to neutralize any acids that are in our mouths. Well, if our mouth is dry, there's no saliva to neutralize the acids, plus a dry mouth equals an acidic mouth. In other words, a mouth full of acids. And so the normal pH, which is a measure of acidity, is 7.0. If you go below 7, then your mouth is acidic. Well, I got to tell you, Kerry, probably close to 50% of my patients have a pH of 5.5. And pH of 5.5 means that their mouth is constantly acidic. It's constantly taking minerals out of the tooth structure and making those teeth more prone to decay. So the answer is we see a lot of people with decay in their older years, and it's much more difficult to control decay on a root surface than it is to control decay on an enamel surface as we do in kids.
Wow. Well, all of this is so important and such good information. It's interesting how much we get moved around by the ads we see on TV and things like that. But we did 5 questions here, and Dr. Sheldon. So, like, if you got how do we score this? If you got four out of 5, like 4 out of 5 dentists recommend kind of thing, does that make you the dental pro, or how do we score ourselves on this? I mean, it's just for fun, I know, but
I think some of these were trick questions. I think if you get 2 out of 5 right, you're doing pretty well.
And if you got questions about the questions, I would say you should really consider having a real good mouth checkup and really understand where you are. And it's one of the things I love about how you guys help us in the world of helping seniors, because when somebody gets into that Solid Bite Gives Back program, then they make a donation to helping seniors through your office, which we get the funding for, but then they get a full 2-hour dental exam and then really get some answers to their own particulars, right?
Yeah, it's pretty easy. Just make an appointment and call 321-259-8000. And on that day, just bring a check with you, and you'll write out a check to Helping Seniors of Brevard. You'll get the entire examination, X-ray, CT scan, everything at no charge.
Well, thank you, Dr. Lee Sheldon. We're coming up on the end of the show, but again, I wanted to remind you that there's a lot of great events coming up. So give Nancy a call, 321-473-7770, and she can fill you in on dates or get you RSVP for any of those. She can also help you get those Helping Seniors car raffle tickets. You've got those tickets at your office, Dr. Sheldon.
We do, so stop over, whether you're a patient or not, whether you intend to be a patient or not. We're right near Mark Pylock's museum, so come on over and just say, I want some raffle tickets, and we'll take care of you.
See, I like that, because it's 1 ticket for $25, 5 for a $100 donation. Each ticket goes directly into support the work of Helping Seniors. Number 2, you might go home with a beautiful new car. It's your choice when you win on Saturday, October 7th. It's that Dodge Challenger, or you could take, like our winner did last year, the Chevy Camaro. There's a Mazda Miata, Kia Sportage, Mitsubishi Outlander. It's your call when we pull your winning ticket. And listen, while you don't have to be present to win, We do this on Facebook Live. So if you're, for whatever reason, I'm up in Michigan and I want to see if I won, you can tune in on Facebook Live and watch the whole thing. But the fun part is your ticket. Each ticket is admit one to the museum on that evening. So 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., they open up the doors to Mark's amazing collection. He springs for a great night out. There's always pizza, sandwiches, beer, wine, soda. It's just you can't, Dr. Sheldon, you can't give $100 to a movie theater and get treated, 5 people to a movie and pizza and all kinds of snacks and stuff. It's just a great way to do it and help the work of helping seniors. So with that,
simply what's it.
Yeah, get your tickets and help us, helpingseniors.carraffle.com, and we'll see you next week for Helping Seniors Radio. Have a great week till then.